What you and I are looking at right here is the outcome of a result which basically was an investigation into post-viral fatigue syndrome, which could be fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, so on and so forth. In this case, post-COVID-19 fatigue. If this outcome and this research study can be validated in other studies, because redundancy is important, you have to make sure no confounding of biases snuck their way in. But if so, can help millions upon millions of people today, as well as into the future, for a very low cost and a very wide safety margin, with just incredible outcomes, provided the study is duplicated in other cohorts. So let us begin. It is amazing. Now keep in mind, without further ado as well, this was just achieved by the consumption of 4 grams of powdered creatine in 250 milliliters of lukewarm water consumed at breakfast time, and the benefits began to arise when they measured it at 3 months and at 6 months. Now you're going to see p-values for those statisticians out there, but they also use as well a cohort effect size. And boy, were there some solid effects, which we're going to delve into as well. The public study, you're not going to see this. So this is why I always encourage going to the actual full study itself. This way it's not filtered inappropriately or very important aspects left out. But let's begin right off the bat. Creatine supplementation induced a significant reduction in general fatigue after 3 months of intake compared to baseline values. It significantly improved scores for several post-COVID-19 fatigue-related syndromes: ageusia, breathing difficulties, body aches, headaches, and difficulty concentrating. The concentration scores after 6 months, well, those will astound you as well. At 6-month follow-up, taking creatine for 6 months appears to improve tissue bioenergetics and attenuate clinical features of post-COVID-19 fatigue syndrome. Additional studies, of course, are warranted to confirm our findings, quoting, in various post-COVID-19 cohorts. So it's kind of like it took the researchers back themselves, the benefits that were here. But let us proceed. Can creatine supplements help? This is the public study. Before we go into the full study, help people suffering from post-COVID-19 fatigue. So you're not going to read that top part in the public study, but let us proceed. In the trial, 12 people with post-COVID-19 fatigue syndrome were randomized to take a placebo or 4 grams of creatine monohydrate per day for 6 months. Creatine intake caused a significant increase in creatine levels in leg muscles and across the brain at both 3-month and 6-month follow-ups. Creatine supplementation also led to a significant reduction in general fatigue after 3 months of intake, and it significantly improved scores for several post-COVID-19 fatigue-related symptoms, including loss of taste, ageusia, breathing difficulties, body aches, headaches, and difficulties concentrating after 6-month follow-up. Give a little bit away as far as the highlights from the full study. Something happens with post-viral fatigue syndrome where the brain seems to want to absorb even more creatine than normal. But to proceed, the abstract. All right, before I proceed into the full study and introduction. In this parallel group, randomized placebo-controlled double-blind trial, quoting, we analyzed the effect of 6-month creatine supplementation, 4 grams of creatine monohydrate per day, on various patient and clinical report outcomes and tissue creatine levels in 12 patients with post-COVID-19 fatigue syndrome. Creatine intake induced a significant increase in tissue creatine levels in the vastus medialis muscle and right parietal white matter compared to the baseline values at both 3 and 6-month follow-ups. Now, I'll repeat the intro again so it sinks in. Creatine supplementation induced significant reduction in general fatigue after 3 months of intake compared to baseline values and significantly improved scores for several post-COVID-19 fatigue syndrome-related symptoms: ageusia, breathing difficulties, body aches, headache, and difficulty concentrating. At 6-month follow-up, taking creatine for 6 months appears to improve tissue bioenergetics and attenuate clinical features of post-COVID-19 fatigue syndrome. And to reiterate, additional studies are warranted to confirm our findings in various post-COVID-19 cohorts. All right, this is the chart. This is the cohort effect size. I highlighted the areas above the 0.8. If you read down below, you see, for example, it says a large effect size is 0.8 or higher. Take that in. That is just incredible. Incredible. To proceed, methods. All right, I'm just showing you this right here. It shows you the study methodology, as well as the time of day, the amount taken, so on and so forth, just in case there could be some confounding involved, or basically someone who wants to consult with a medical professional. Now, proceed. Some of the highlights. Interesting tidbits from the full study itself. A recent trial reported tissue creatine levels in patients with post-COVID-19 fatigue syndrome, implying a need for replenishing creatine by exogenous administration. Add some water, drink it down. Interestingly, creatine and creatine analogs were found effective in various syndromes with long-term fatigue, including fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome of unknown source. Yet no human study so far evaluated its effectiveness and safety in the clinical context of post-COVID-19. Henceforth, the backstory leading to this research. Interesting observation, as we discussed, alluded to earlier. We found here a higher magnitude of brain creatine uptake after the intervention as compared to other neurological conditions, where brain creatine increases at approximately 5% at post-administration, even when administered in fairly high dosages as used in our trial. This perhaps suggests a possible disease-driven susceptibility of the human brain to absorb more creatine in pvfs, post-viral fatigue syndrome, after COVID-19. A possible dysregulation of the blood-brain barrier in COVID-19 might enable more creatine to be uptake by the brain and offset the creatine deficit seen in this disease. So it just happens to be that something went amiss that basically helps the brain absorb more creatine, which may, without adding publisher bias, yield to such an incredible rapid outcome. Highlight number 2. In addition, an increase in brain creatine was accompanied by improved brain performance. Wait till you get this. After creatine intake, with patients reporting a significant drop of 77.8% in scores for concentration difficulties at the 3-month period. At 6 months, no concentration difficulties at this 6-month follow-up. I'm going to reiterate that, or to repeat. Improved brain performance after creatine intake, with patients reporting a significant drop of 77.8% in scores for concentration difficulties at the 3-month follow-up, and no concentration difficulties at the 6-month follow-up. That's why it is important that we have some post-COVID-19 cohort studies in regard to this to validate this information. That's an incredible result. That's amazing. That can yield a lot of hope, provided this research, again, can be duplicated. To proceed, number 3. Also, it seems that creatine in post-COVID-19 fatigue syndrome could benefit organs beyond the brain, with the participants in our trial, quoting of course, reporting a significant drop in lung and body pain after the intervention, while other pathogenomic features of post-COVID-19, anosmia, ageusia, and breathing difficulties also diminished at follow-up. Possible mechanisms of favorable creatine action in post-viral fatigue syndrome, PVFS, after COVID-19 can not only include its role in adenosine triphosphate, recycling to support energy metabolism in the brain and skeletal muscle, but also anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and neuromodulatory actions. That is an incredible new venue of beneficial mechanisms, if validated. To conclude, taking creatine, quoting of course, for 6 months appears to improve the tissue bioenergetics. Again, redundancy. They have to make sure, even though they're looking at the results going, wow, this is pretty amazing, let's do some follow-up studies just to make sure what we're seeing is what we're seeing. And attenuate clinical features of COVID, which is post-COVID, obviously, post-COVID-19 fatigue syndrome, possibly due to its energy replenishing and neuroprotective activity. Endorsing creatine, they're not doing that right now, might be thus of great importance in tackling high prevalent PVFS, post-viral fatigue syndrome, after COVID-19 pandemics. Additional studies are warranted to confirm, again, redundancy, to confirm our findings in various post-COVID-19 cohorts. Again, as well too, I appreciate your trust in me, but validate. And it's kind of like we're sharing. And sharing is caring, or more fun. Let's get really corny, let's put it that way. But here is research that without a doubt can yield incredible benefit for so many people so rapidly. I would really like to see the results in regard to the concentration one, and to have no concentration issues reported after 6 months. Wow. And again, the creatine itself was just not used in the context of post-COVID-19 fatigue, but also other post-viral fatigue syndrome classified ailments. We'll just put it that way. And again, just done with nothing more in this particular study for the outcome in regard to post-COVID-19 was 4 grams of creatine and 250 milliliters of lukewarm water at breakfast time for a period of 6 months. This is the type of research that can change people's lives, provided it's validated, and there's no confounding of biases that crept their way in, very rapidly and very fast, and yield incredible ways of basically helping offset not so nice stuff in potentially future forthcoming ailments. If that's even not too wordy, it's almost like politics. But just the same, to give you an idea, in this case, you really have to give credit to the researchers for actually taking something very inexpensive, very simple to dispense, researching it, not just for themselves, but for the benefit of people as a whole. And not just people of today, but people of the future. And not just people post-COVID-19, but again, other people possibly experiencing issues in regard to post-viral fatigue syndrome. Gratitude to the researchers. I am humbled you watch, and I can't wait to see what you and I, again, get to share next week. Catch you next time. Bye.